Drasa wakes up to the sound of a plane arriving. Grabbing her weapon, she waits, and the moment a man steps off the plane, she shoots him in the head. Meanwhile, former Marine Levi wakes from a nightmare and decides to clear his mind by resting at the beach. The next morning, he receives a text instructing him to report to the Marine Corps base. There, he meets Agent Bartholomew, who knows about his outstanding career as an elite sniper and his lack of family or friends. She offers him a job. In Lithuania, Drasa visits a cemetery with her father to mark the anniversary of her mother's death. Her father, recently diagnosed with terminal cancer, tells her that if he's still alive by February 14th, he'll take his own life so he can reunite with his wife on Valentine's Day. Months later, in September, Levi wakes up groggy from anesthesia on a plane. When he asks a nearby soldier where they are, she tells him she isn't authorized to say. She collects all his personal items and informs him they're approaching a no-fly zone. He must jump and travel the rest of the way on foot. Taking his assigned bag, Levi leaps from the plane, waiting for the right moment to deploy his parachute. After landing safely, he begins a long journey of climbing, trekking, and camping. Eventually, he reaches the edge of a massive gorge, where he meets soldier JD, who has been stationed there for a year, and also has no idea where they are. JD takes Levi to the West Tower, a fully self-sufficient outpost powered by solar energy, with a backup generator, a rainwater system, a vegetable garden, and an abundance of wild game for hunting. Across the gorge stands the East Tower, but communication with its guard is strictly forbidden. The gorge itself is surrounded by landmines and tactical barriers to the north and south, making it impossible to cross. As JD gives Levi a tour, he explains his mission. Every day, Levi must walk the western rim, restocking ammo in the automatic gun turrets positioned every 600 meters. He must also inspect the containment fence, suspended mines, and cloakers, which send false signals to satellites to keep the gorge invisible. A radio check is conducted every 30 days, but there is no way to communicate with the outside world. In an emergency, Levi can activate the stray dog protocol using a panic button, but JD doesn't know what it does, only that if it's ever triggered, Levi should run. JD reveals that this place dates back to the Cold War, when military teams from different nations made a pact to keep it secret, meaning even world leaders are unaware of its existence. Levi's mission is simple: prevent anything in the gorge from getting out. It sounds insane, and JD once thought so too, until he saw something the guards call the Hollow Men. Their eerie screeches echo through the gorge. JD recounts that in the late 1940s, 3 horseback battalions were sent in to eliminate whatever was inside, but none returned. Since then, the military has focused solely on containment. Afterward, JD leaves the tower, hiking all the way to the pickup point. As JD reaches the pickup point, a helicopter lifts him with a rope, and a soldier inside asks for his identity. The moment JD gives the password, the soldier shoots him in the head and drops his body into the mountains below. A month later, Levi has settled into his monotonous routine, walking the perimeter, maintaining security systems, and checking in on the radio. The voice on the other end only asks if everything is fine, then hangs up before Levi can ask anything. One day, while tending to the garden, Levi notices movement at the East Tower. Rushing to his binoculars, he sees Drasa cutting wood. She sees him too, but ignores him. One stormy night, Levi wakes suddenly from a nightmare, accidentally knocking over a glass. Thinking he's under attack, he grabs his gun, but when he feels a sharp pain in his foot, he realizes he simply stepped on the broken glass. As he cleans his wound, he notices Drasa is still awake, watching him from her tower. When she realizes he's looking back, she heads to bed. Another month passes, and Drasa spends her birthday alone. Bored, she fires a shot into the air to get Levi's attention, then holds up a sign asking for his name. Levi writes back, reminding her that they aren't supposed to communicate. Ignoring the rule, Drasa introduces herself and declares that she'll do whatever she wants on her birthday. Levi writes his name in response and raises a glass to toast. Drasa then blasts loud music and starts dancing, encouraging Levi to join in. He tells her he's a terrible dancer, but an excellent sniper. In response, Drasa playfully shoots his water bottle. Levi quickly retaliates by shooting hers, so she places another bottle on her head to continue the game. However, she suddenly stops when she notices movement in the gorge. Levi follows her gaze and sees eerie humanoid creatures made of tree-like material climbing up his side of the gorge wall. Reacting instantly, he shoots one, sending it falling onto a mine, which explodes and takes down several others. But more creatures continue climbing, so Levi keeps firing while Drasa joins in with her machine gun. Together, they manage to take down all the creatures in minutes. Just as they think it's over, one of the creatures reaches Drasa's balcony. She shoots it several times before kicking it off. Then, more creatures start climbing her side of the gorge. Once again, both soldiers work together to stop them. Another creature triggers a mine, and the explosion sends a shard of metal flying, injuring Drossa's shoulder. The monsters then begin climbing both sides of the gorge simultaneously. Levi and Drossa fire relentlessly, using their machine guns and activating more mines to hold them off. This time, they successfully eliminate every last creature, until the attack finally ends. The next morning, Drossa tends to her wound and tells Levi that despite everything, it was the best birthday she's ever had. Levi then sets out to repair the damage from the battle and replace the mines. Suddenly, a drone emerges from the gorge and flies off. In December, Levi decorates a tree in the forest with lights to resemble a Christmas tree and leaves a sign for Drossa. From then on, they start sharing small moments together, building snowmen with each other's names, playing chess, and even using pots as drums. On February 14th, Levi notices Drossa crying while looking at a family photo. When he asks why she skipped her patrol, she admits she's having a rough day and wishes he could be there with her. Determined to bridge the distance, Levi constructs a special contraption using tools from the armory and fires a rocket across the gorge. It lodges into a tree and sparks a small fire, which Drossa quickly puts out, noticing a rope attached to the rocket. She secures the rope tightly and returns to her tower just in time to see Levi gesturing for her to join him for dinner. Levi then slides down the rope to cross, but midway, he gets stuck. Luckily, his gloves allow him to grip the rope and continue moving. When he finally reaches Drossa's tower, he presents her with flowers. She teases him about his smell from all the effort, and Levi agrees to take a shower. While he's washing, Drossa swaps his uniform for clean clothes left by a previous occupant. During dinner, they reflect on their experiences as mercenaries and the toll their jobs have taken on their minds. They share a dance, which leads to a passionate night together. The next morning, as Levi prepares to slide back to his tower, hollow men suddenly appear on his side of the gorge. One of them triggers a mine, causing a massive explosion that severs the rope. Levi plummets but quickly deploys his parachute. Seeing this, Drossa grabs her own parachute and an arsenal of weapons before jumping into the gorge after him. She lands in a river, but her parachute gets caught on a rock, forcing her to cut herself free. The powerful current sends her crashing into a rock, making her drop the auto ascender. As she fights against the water, she grabs onto tree roots and pulls herself to shore. Meanwhile, Levi is unconscious, dangling from a tree. A branch suddenly moves, revealing itself to be a monster. As it creeps closer, Levi wakes up and starts shooting while untangling himself. He drops to the ground, landing in what appears to be mud, but the substance begins to move. It's actually the mouth of a massive creature. The sticky, adhesive surface traps him as the mouth slowly begins to close. Hearing the gunshots, Drossa rushes to his aid and fires at the creature, saving Levi just in time. She cuts away the adhesive with a knife, freeing him, and they set off toward the wall to retrieve the rope. Before they can reach it, eerie screeching fills the air, and two hollow men appear, riding horses that also seem to be made of trees. The creatures attack fiercely, wielding swords. One jumps onto Drossa, but she stabs it in the neck and shoots it in the face as it falls. Meanwhile, the other hollow man uses a whip to snatch Levi's rifle. Thinking fast, Levi pulls out his handgun and shoots both the rider and his monstrous horse, killing them instantly. Drossa checks her bag and realizes the auto-ascender was lost in the river. With the gorge walls too steep to climb, they have no way back. She suggests following the river, reasoning that it must lead somewhere. As they move deeper into the forest, Levi examines one of the dead creatures and discovers it's wearing an ancient military uniform, the lost horseback battalions from the legend. Along their journey, they stumble upon hundreds of skeletons, leading them to an abandoned town overtaken by mutated plants. The ground bears signs of an earthquake, and the eerie sounds of screeching monsters echo in the distance. Seeking shelter, they duck into a church, only to find skeletons seated inside. Levi catches the scent of cyanide, deducing that the townspeople took their own lives rather than continue living in this nightmare. Before they can process this, a sudden noise alerts them to danger. Drossa looks up just in time to see a giant spider lunging at her. She manages to shove it away, only to fall into the path of another. As she stabs it, Levi is attacked by two more and quickly shoots them. Soon, the church is swarming with spiders, forcing both soldiers into a desperate battle. Drossa runs out of bullets, and Levi covers her as she reloads. They fight their way toward the exit, but just as they reach the doors, hollow men burst inside. Now, they must split their attention between battling the monstrous spiders and the relentless hollow men. Drossa grabs a creature and smashes its head against a table, before throwing it into the swarm of spiders, which immediately crawl over it. Levi, meanwhile, struggles against several attackers, but manages to shoot them down. Realizing they need an escape, Drasa fires a grenade at the back wall, blasting a hole they can flee through. They sprint into the forest, but the creature's screeches still echo behind them. Knowing they're too exposed, they move closer to the wall and discover an old door leading inside. Within, they find a long-abandoned facility, also overrun by mutated plants. Exploring deeper, they uncover evidence that this was once a military lab. Skeletons litter the ground, and a dormant generator hums in the darkness. Drasa activates it, while Levi finds an old tape reel. They play it on a projector, revealing a black and white film of a scientist from 1946. The scientist explains that this place was part of a top-secret international coalition formed during the final years of World War II. Their goal was to develop biochemical missiles, but 6 days before the recording, an earthquake struck, causing a massive chemical leak. The scientists worked tirelessly to contain it, but the toxin merged with the DNA of the local flora and fauna, triggering horrifying mutations. Short-term exposure seemed harmless, but prolonged contact began to change them as well. The proof was on the screen. A female scientist revealing the first signs of transformation, with tree-like branches beginning to grow from her stomach. Since the base was located in the Gorge, the toxin never spread to the rest of humanity. In another room, Levi and Drasa discover a computer from the late 2000s, proving that even after the initial disaster, people continued the experiments. When Levi powers it on, he finds out that the facility belongs to Darklake, a private paramilitary corporation. The drone they saw earlier was collecting samples for Darklake's ongoing research, which aims to create super soldiers. The towers and the hired guards were put in place to keep their secret. As Levi digs deeper, he uncovers details about the Stray Dog Protocol, a nuclear bomb designed to sterilize the entire area in case of a containment breach. As they prepare to leave, Levi tells Drasa that despite everything, coming on this mission was worth it because he got to meet her. They toss a smoke grenade and step outside, but suddenly a hollow man's whip snags Drasa's ankle and drags her away. As she's pulled through the forest, she struggles to cut the whip with her knife but crashes into a tree and loses it. She tries shooting, but the constant impacts from rocks and logs throw off her aim. Levi follows the tracks, eventually reaching a facility containing the nuclear bomb. Inside, the hollow man has strung Drasa up and is torturing her by twisting the branch embedded in her stomach before ripping it out. In pain but determined, Drasa kicks him in the chest and untangles herself from the ropes. She grabs a metal shard as a weapon, but the hollow man overpowers her, and the snake protruding from his chest lashes out. Refusing to give up, Drasa decapitates the snake, then hurls the metal shard at the hollow man. Though it doesn't kill him, it enrages him, and he begins attacking her with his sword. Drasa defends herself using bones as a shield, and crafts a makeshift torch, setting her enemy on fire. As the hollow man screams in agony, Levi arrives and finishes him off with a bullet. After reuniting with a hug, Levi inspects the body and recognizes the uniform. It belonged to the first guard who worked in his tower. Taking the hollow man's sword, the duo continues onward and stumbles upon the site of the original toxin leak. The area is infested with grotesque mutated creatures trapped in a thick, goo-like substance. As they cautiously cross a bridge, the eerie faces in the goo begin breathing. Drasa accidentally steps on a root, which awakens the creatures, causing them to lunge at her. Levi slashes through the roots to free her, but even bigger creatures begin stirring. As Levi carves a path with the sword, a tendril of goo wraps around his ankle, yanking him down. Thinking fast, Drasa fires a grenade behind them, triggering a massive explosion that engulfs the creatures in flames while they escape up a stairwell. Searching the town, they find military jeeps in an old garage. After repairing an engine, they take off, driving for hours until they reach the severed rope. Levi quickly secures it to the jeep, while Drasa holds off approaching hollow men with gunfire. When she runs out of bullets, they switch roles. With the setup complete, they begin their ascent up the wall. At first, everything goes smoothly, but soon, hollow men start climbing after them. They kick one off, and Levi uses the sword to fight the rest. Drasa finds an axe in the toolbox and joins the battle. As Levi forces one enemy into the spinning wheels, Drasa knocks another off the windshield. Suddenly, a hollow man leaps onto Levi, nearly knocking him off. Clinging on at the last second, Levi stabs the jeep's gas tank before climbing back up. He then ignites a flare and tosses it, setting off a fiery explosion that incinerates their pursuers, but also destroys the jeep. The blast sends Levi crashing against the wall, breaking his leg. Drasa helps him up, and since they are now closer to the top, they cut the rope, letting the jeep plummet onto the remaining hollow men below. After climbing the rest of the way, they return to Drossa's tower. As they treat their injuries, they agree to quarantine separately for 5 days, in case they were exposed to the toxin. Knowing they want to escape together, they devise a plan to destroy the Gorge. Before parting, they share a kiss, and Levi tells Drossa he loves her, before using a grappling gun to return to his tower. The next day, during the routine radio check-in, Levi's call is intercepted by Bartholomew, who has learned that the lab computer was activated. When Levi denies entering the Gorge, she assumes the soldier in the other tower did, and orders him to eliminate them. Levi pretends to accept the mission, but it turns out the lab computer had a camera. Bartholomew knows they were both down there. She calls a commander and orders a team to be sent to the Gorge. The next morning, as Levi and Drossa set up mines for their escape, Drossa writes, "I love you back" for Levi. Just then, they spot a helicopter approaching and take off running through the forest. Upon finding the towers empty, the soldiers deploy drones, initiating a high-speed chase. The drones open fire, forcing Levi and Drossa to shoot back, taking them down one by one, but sustaining minor injuries. Reaching higher ground, they position themselves as snipers and take out the cloakers. Thanks to the mines they planted earlier, a chain reaction erupts, wiping out the cloakers and exposing the Gorge. This activates the stray dog protocol. Bartholomew and her team scramble to their helicopter to escape as Levi and Drossa sprint for their lives. The nuclear bomb detonates, creating an enormous explosion that engulfs the helicopter, killing everyone aboard. However, the blast also hurls Levi off a cliff into a river below. Drossa barely escapes and hides in a cave, waiting for him. After a month with no sign of Levi, she reluctantly leaves alone. Sometime later, in France, Drossa is working as a waitress when she is stunned to see Levi sitting at a table. He explains that it took him a while to recover from his injuries. Overcome with relief, they reunite with a kiss.